Now, out of all versions of Spider-Man that there are, coming from movies, video games, and TV shows, there are three portrayals that'll always stick with me as the best versions of Spider-Man. Number one is going to go to Josh Keaton for the Spectacular Spider-Man cartoon. I just thought he was amazing in that. He's probably my favorite version of Spider-Man ever, and I highly recommend this cartoon to any Spider-Man fan who somehow hasn't watched it, especially this Blu-ray. Go pick it up, it is great. My second favorite portrayal is going to be Rhino Romano for those PS1 Spider-Man games, because I just thought that, he had a great voice for Spider-Man. It fit the role so perfectly, and even though he only had a few brief appearances, I just thought he nailed it every time he was on screen. But my third favorite portrayal of Spider-Man is always going to be Tobey Maguire for the Sam Raimi movies.
Yeah, that's a pretty controversial thing to say nowadays. Not even counting Spider-Man 3, the Sam Raimi movies seem to have been getting a lot of shit from Spider-Man fans, it seems. Not completely sure why. Perhaps I'm blinded by nostalgia or whatever, but Spider-Man's 1 and 2 are still some of my most favorite superhero movies ever, or hell, maybe even just favorite movies. I've been familiar with the first Spider-Man movie for probably my entire life. It might just be the first ever movie that I actually sat down and watched all the way through as a young child, on good old VHS too. I'm pretty positive that I've seen Spider-Man 1 well past 100 times already. I can practically recite the entire movie if I had the time. It just blew my mind as a kid, and it was one of the main forms of media that got me into Spider-Man in the first place. I still say that this movie holds up to this day. I mean, the first hour where Peter Parker and several of the other students are clearly just adults in their late 20s trying to pass as high schoolers. Which, yeah. There are some kind of cringy dialogue moments, and the CG effects are very dated at this point. But at the same time, the cinematography is brilliant, a lot of the practical effects are really tight, the action scenes are entertaining as hell, there's still tons of emotional scenes that still affect me to this day. J.K. Simmons is playing J. Jonah Jameson, which is probably the greatest casting choice, like, ever. And also, Danny Elfman's film score. Late 80s to early 2000s Danny Elfman is such a good boy. So of course, with Spider-Man's 1 and 2 having such a huge influence on my life by this point, I've always had a soft spot for Mr. Dopey Face himself, Tobey Maguire. Sure, there are people who call his performance awkward and also call him dorky, but that's kind of what makes me like him as Spider-Man, because guess who else was and still is awkward and dorky? His performance connected with me as a kid, and probably even more as a grown-up. Of sorts. I will always defend Tobey Maguire as Spider-Man, in the first two movies at least, until my grave. I kind of feel like people who mock Tobey don't completely understand or know how the Peter Parker character is supposed to be relatable. Sam's channel made a great video defending Tobey in the Raimi trilogy, and I recommend checking it out, along with all his other videos. They're all a good watch in my book. Trying to get back on topic, so the first Spider-Man movie from Sam Raimi was due to be released in May of 2002. So Activision got a deal with Sony to make their next Spider-Man game be an adaptation of the movie. With Neversoft out of the question and Vicarious Visions not being very eligible, Activision decided to give the game-making duties to Treyarch, the company that made the Dreamcast port of Spider-Man 2000. And thus, Treyarch would continue to make Spider-Man games for over the course of 6 years, with their first game being Spider-Man the Movie, which got released in April of 2002. Freaking April. That's literally 1 month before the actual movie hit theaters. How did they screw this up? So, with me being a huge Spider-Man fan since I was practically born, I definitely heard a lot about the Spider-Man games. Mainly Spider-Man 2 the game, which I remember seeing countless commercials for in 2004. If you're wondering why I'm talking about Spider-Man 2 and not Spider-Man 1, just wait a bit, alright? I want to say it was late 2004 when I kept nagging at my parents to get me Spider-Man 2 the game. I just wanted to play this awesome looking game that I kept hearing was the best Spider-Man game ever. So, on Christmas of 2004, I woke up to see a huge present under the tree for me. I opened it up and it just so happened to be an Xbox, specifically the original Xbox. But not just that, it came bundled with 2 games. I think one of the games was like this double feature sports game that came on 1 disc, and one was like Madden or something, and the other game on it was something called Top Spin, which was like a tennis game. I didn't play it that much. However, it also came with a very specific Spider-Man game. Do you want to take a guess which one it was? That's right, the first game! I never got to play Spider-Man 2 when I was little. Yeah, Spider-Man the movie game is kind of my childhood Spider-Man game. Ultimate Spider-Man was a close enough second, but we'll get to that beauty later. I wanted Spider-Man 2 so badly, but I had to settle with the first game, which thankfully wasn't that bad of a substitute. Neither was Ultimate Spider-Man, but save it for later. I'm feeling super nostalgic just looking at this game. The menus be looking so slick as hell. I'm so gonna enjoy revisiting this. Obviously, seeing how this is an adaptation of the movie, the main plot is just about the same. I'm not entirely sure how much access Sony let Treyarch have with the first movie, but I wouldn't say this is a perfect one-to-one film-to-game adaptation in terms of story. So yeah, a guy named Peter Parker gets bit by a radioactive spider, which gives him super spider powers, and after the death of his Uncle Ben, he decides he'll use his powers for the greater good, following his uncle's great advice. With great power comes great responsibility, thus becoming the Amazing Spider-Man. Much like what happens in the movie, Peter's friend's dad, Norman Osborn, is working on creating these human performance enhancers, which are being powered by a chemical that is quite similar to what was in the spider that gave Peter his powers in the first place. After some conflict with his business, Norman decides he'll test the chemicals on himself, which results in him developing an evil alter ego, the Green Goblin. And so it's up to Spider-Man to stop the Green Goblin from wreaking havoc on New York City. So that main part of the plot is note for note what happens in the movie. However, this kind of would have made the game's length way shorter than the actual movie. So Treyarch decided to expand the plot by adding a couple more subplots and villains for Spider-Man to stop. This includes the Shocker, the Vulture, Scorpion, and the almighty hunter, Kraven, who for some reason is only in the Xbox version. Both Shocker and Vulture are just about stopping them from stealing from banks. It's really that basic. Scorpion's appearance in this game is brief, but pretty interesting. Apparently, much like Spider-Man, Scorpion was also a creation caused by the performance enhancers by Oscorp, though it has been driving him insane and he's been on the run from the Oscorp's robot spiders which won't stop hunting him down. Again, Scorpion's story was really brief but pretty interesting to watch, and it's kind of a nice way to make it seem like Scorpion could also fit into the world of the Sam Raimi movies flawlessly. There's also a pretty funny line that Spider-Man makes commenting on Scorpion's situation.
So what's your story? Stung by a radioactive scorpion or something?
The Kraven subplot is probably the simplest. He's not motivated by greed or even fear. He's just trying to kill the spider, just for the thrill of it. Even though Osborn does ask him to take down Spider-Man, but Kraven decides to keep that part a secret. It really benefits his character in a way. I mean, if you played the GameCube, PC, or PlayStation 2 versions, you're probably really confused to see that Kraven was even in this game. Like I mentioned earlier, his story and levels are only in the Xbox version, which was also the version that I grew up with, and I was so surprised to hear that Kraven wasn't in any other version. And it's not like the Xbox version came out a little while after the other versions. All 3 console versions and the PC version got released on the same day. This is so weird. The story also changes things up a bit whenever it goes back to adapting the movie, but I'll definitely have more to say about that whenever I discuss the levels, so I'll just wait until then. The voice acting is okay. It doesn't really hold up too well. I mean, I like the voices they gave Shocker, Vulture, and Kraven, but their deliveries can come off sounding really cheesy at points. But they're fine. I'd also probably say that they have the most solid voice acting in this game.
Alright, listen up. Spider-Man's gonna be right behind us. When he gets down here, ambush him. There's no way we're giving up a score this big to some clown in red tights.
You're becoming a thorn in my side. Today, you die, Spider-Man!
Well played, Spider. You are as cunning as I had heard. Here is the antidote, as I promised.
Also, I swear to God, Scorpion was voiced by John Goodman.
Keep away from me! Will I destroy you? Yes, I will!
The two biggest actors to be featured in this game are Willem Dafoe as Norman Osborn / the Green Goblin, and Tobey Maguire as Peter Parker / Spider-Man. Well, Willem is really good. Okay, as Norman, he's really good, but as the Green Goblin, he's really over the top and corny. To be honest, he's just about the same as he was in the movie, and you know what? That's a good thing. His performance in the movie was spectacular.
There's only one who can stop us. Or imagine if he joined us. Throughout downtown are bombs have planted, filled with a deadly gas. When they go off, well, use your imagination.
When it comes to Tobey Maguire, well, I love his performance in the movie, but in the games, I'm really not sure what's going on. I mean, there are some lines that I think he delivers pretty well, but other times, he can sound kind of bored.
So you must be Quilt Man, Padded Pete, Mr. Triple Ply? Oh, I've got it. The cushion. Now, Vulture, you can't go around taking things that don't belong to you. What kind of example does it set for impressionable youngsters out there? Is that like a sweepstakes? I always throw those away. Nice outfit, by the way. Where's Siegfried?
I don't know who's to fault for this. Either Tobey is not a good voice actor, or maybe his voice director just didn't give a shit. It's kind of a shame because Spider-Man has a lot of really good lines here that I know Tobey could deliver super well. The dude can be an amazing actor with the right direction, and I'm super aware that Tobey can be an amazing voice actor. I've seen Cats and Dogs. Nah, but really though, I love Tobey Maguire, but I think his performance in the game can be really lacking in a lot of areas. It's great that Treyarch got him to be in this game, but to the voice director, try harder. Willem Dafoe and Tobey Maguire were the only two actors that they got from the movie to be in the game. Instead of Kirsten Dunst, Mary Jane is being voiced by Catherine O'Connor in this game, and she's fine. She's a suitable replacement voice, I guess.
Are you alright?
Yeah, thanks. You were great back there.
Thanks. I have to go deal with, you know.
Oh, yeah.
There's also Harry Osborn, who in this game isn't being voiced by James Franco, but instead is being voiced by Josh Keaton. Wait, Josh Keaton? As in the spectacular Spider-Man Josh Keaton?
I'm just glad you're here. I can't wait for my dad to meet you. I mean, sure, Spidey saved a lot of lives, but is that why I do it? Or am I in it for the thrill?
Actually, apparently Josh Keaton was going to be the voice of Spider-Man in this game if Treyarch wasn't able to get Tobey Maguire on board. So they gave him the part of Harry Osborn instead, and it's pretty dang weird seeing two of my favorite Spider-Man actors in the same game. Oh yeah, not only is Kraven exclusive to the Xbox version, there's also a cutscene that has J. Jonah Jameson in it who is not being voiced by J.K. Simmons, which is really disappointing. Especially considering the voice they actually gave him.
What are you doing here? Why aren't you down at the zoo getting me pictures of this?
But I just...
Doesn't anyone do his job around here? It's right out my window. I could write the copy myself.
Yeah, I wonder what J.K. Simmons would think of this voice.
I'd bet money Spider-Man's involved somehow.
They're crap. Crap. Mega crap. I'll give you $200 for all of them.
The cutscenes and graphics are alright. A lot of the cutscenes are done with the in-game models, but a few of them are done in these pre-rendered FMVs. The pre-rendered ones look decent. They were very much more impressive 15 years ago, at least. The in-game cutscenes are okay. The character models have actual lip movements going on, which is a first for a 3D Spider-Man game to do. The animations are fine, the lip syncing is pretty well done, and graphically, it looks okay. The game is also running at a solid 60 frames a second, which is pretty dope. Guess now I should move on to the gameplay and other stuff. So how does Treyarch's first Spidey outing handle the gameplay? Well, they decided to base their gameplay style off the one from the PS1 games. So Spider-Man can climb walls, jump really high, web sling, and has his usual combat. In my last review, I complained about how Enter Electro reused the first game's gameplay style and changed almost nothing about it. However, with Spider-Man the movie the game being on much more powerful hardware, Treyarch decided to expand the gameplay a little. The first major difference is the web slinging. In the first two games, Spider-Man could only shoot 2 webs until he tired out and just fell to the ground or swung to the nearest wall/building. In the movie game, Spider-Man can actually web sling for as long as you want. Yup, we can web sling indefinitely now, and it is super rad. As a kid, I may have been more excited to play Spider-Man 2 over Spider-Man 1, but coming off the first PS1 game, this upgrade to the web slinging frickin' blew me away. I mean, this isn't the best web slinging mechanic ever, it's really simplistic looking in comparison to the later games, but this was a huge step up from the last 2 games, most definitely. Though it does beg the question, what the heck is Spider-Man even swinging onto? I mean, in closed-in areas it makes a bit more sense, but outdoor swinging, whenever you move above most of the tallest buildings, it seriously looks like Spider-Man is shooting his webs at the clouds or something. Not only is the web slinging updated, but so was the combat. In the first 2 games, they were super simplistic punching and kicking, but in this game, we're introduced to combos. You can basically alternate between the punch and kick buttons to perform some really strong attacks on an enemy or two. You can unlock more combos by collecting these golden spider tokens, which are hidden throughout all the levels. It does offer some decent replay value, unless you go to the cheats menu and input a cheat that unlocks all the combos. Lazy bum. Usually, I just stick to using 1 or 2 different combos on a large group of enemies that pose a threat. I'm really simplistic that way, but you can look up the list of combos you've unlocked in the pause menu. Some of the combos can also incorporate web attacks in the line of battle, which just looks so satisfying to perform. Speaking of web attacks, since this gameplay is basically an enhanced version of the PS1 gameplay style, Treyarch also brought over most of the classic web attacks too. These all include the web zip, web balls, web pulls, and just webbing up enemies, though this time they could break out of the webbing. Somehow. Isn't that shit supposed to be super strong? They're basically restraining the enemy so that you could lay a few punches on them. Pretty useful. The web gloves and web shield are also brought back and work just about as well as they did in the past. Though the web gloves can just poof away after a few punches or if you take off web slinging. I mentioned that you could climb walls like usual, but if you think the wall crawling is kinda slow, you can actually use the web zip to go up a wall much faster. This is one of my favorite web moves. It's much quicker and can save a lot of time. Also, whenever you're web slinging, hold down the right trigger. It'll make you web sling much faster too. That shit blew my mind as a kid. The gameplay is pretty solid, though it's not perfect. The ground control can take some getting used to, and that's mainly because of the camera. This is the first ever Spider-Man game to have camera control, but you can only move it left, right, and sometimes up. You can only move it upwards if you're standing still. Moving the right analog stick down can reset the camera back behind Spider-Man. So the camera isn't constantly resetting itself to be behind Spider-Man, which is really nice. But it can actually lock your controls in a few areas. I don't really know how to describe this, but let's just say if you're moving forward and you turn the camera, Spider-Man isn't gonna turn with the camera, but he'll just keep moving in whatever direction he was running. The camera can basically lock your controls whenever you're changing its position. If you've already played the game, then you might know what I'm trying to explain. Hopefully. There is an option to switch the controls from classic to enhanced, but I honestly can't tell the difference between both modes. I mean, it's probably a really obvious change that's just going completely over my head, but I thought that both modes had the same issues when it came to ground control. It's really not the best thing ever. The locked controls can also affect the wall crawling a couple times. Also, for whatever reason, the web powers are still being limited. The web bar is functioning about as well as it did in the PS1 games. However, they made it to where you can only hold 1 web cartridge instead of 10. Why did they make it this way? But it makes even less sense because this game is being based off the movie, where Spider-Man didn't even use web shooters. In the movie, he had organic webbing, which meant that his web powers were basically unlimited. Why are they still limiting the web powers? Stop doing this! Whatever. The gameplay is a nice upgrade to the PS1 games. It still has some issues, but I still think it holds up pretty well. If you still find some problems with the gameplay, you can always use the tutorials. Like in the last games, the first few levels have some blue question marks in certain spots which can give you some hints, and there's also the training mode which was brought back for this game. This time around, however, all the tutorials are being narrated by the one and only Bruce Campbell, and... okay, people love to bitch about forced tutorials and all, but I'm sorry, if your game's tutorials are being narrated by this man...
Good. Bad. I'm the guy with the gun.
That's badass. Thankfully, you can skip all the tutorials and just jump right into the game. The levels in this game are way more expansive than they've ever been in any Spider-Man game. The first level really highlights just how much more packed this game is. You've still got objectives and all, but you can go swing around and do other things. Look at this, it's practically an open world. This was pretty dang gratifying to play, especially as a kid. There's so much detail and stuff to be found in just this first level. The web sound effects are ripped right from the movie, and this is gonna sound weird, but the most I can really remember about playing this first level as a kid was just web slinging around and just hearing the same web sound effect repeated over and over again. This game just amazed me so much when I was little. I just felt like Spider-Man when I was playing this. It was just so much more flowing than the PS1 games ever were. Though, as open as the world may seem, there are invisible walls that force Spider-Man to go back into the city, and there's also a bottomless pit. Yeah. Even though the level is in daytime and we could see the streets of New York just fine, for whatever reason, Spider-Man still can't go on the ground. So if you fall a little too close to the ground, Spidey will just die. It makes zero sense. The first PS1 game at least had a reason why you couldn't go on the ground, you know, it was all covered in fog or whatever. Enter Electro had some ground missions, but even then it would always put us back on the rooftops, where it ended up making the ground become bottomless pits again, which makes no sense! And it still doesn't make any sense here. This open city is even reused a few times, with one level making it take place at nighttime. You would assume that maybe it would be too dark to go on the ground, making it dangerous or whatever, but no! There are even streetlights on the ground that are lighting up the roads, so this doesn't make any sense. Why can't we go on the ground? It appears we're not quite there just yet. Maybe next time. The open city levels are only used about 5 to 6 times, and they're also the only levels with actual bottomless pits of sorts. The rest of the game takes place indoors and it's just about reaching the end of the levels, much like the previous games. Getting back to that, the first storyline involves hunting down Uncle Ben's killer, who for some reason has a group of gang members who are trying to stop Spider-Man. I remember when I first got to play this game, I got stuck on this level for the longest time. This game just kicked my ass so hard. And this is the first level too. You're just bombarded with numerous thugs ganging up on Spidey, throwing punches left and right. It's so unfair. I'm not sure what difficulty I had this game on, but I remember it taking me a couple months to get past this first level. I clearly was not smart enough to just spam the combos, which is kind of like what I do now whenever I replay this game. The first story ends with a boss fight with Uncle Ben's killer, who's equipped with a shotgun. Oh my Jesus! Holy shit, that actually made me jump. Well, guess that's how Spider-Man fucking died. Thanks for watching. Really though, most of the bosses can be defeated by using your bare fists. I quite like that simplicity, even though Uncle Ben's killer can actually be one of the more difficult bosses, believe it or not. I'm sorry, how the heck can this guy deflect Spider-Man's webbing? It ends with a somewhat decent recreation of the scene from the movie, though I have to call bullshit near the end because, just look. What the hell was that? What did he even trip on? At least in the movie, he trips off a pipe from backing up into it too quickly. So what made him fall here? His leg? Clearly, this had to be a suicide. Self-righteous suicide! Moving on, the remainder of the game is a bit more easy to play through. After stopping Uncle Ben's killer, you switch from using the wrestling suit to the iconic Spider-Man suit. I remember getting super excited to see that I finally unlocked the Spider-Man costume after beating the first few levels. The next sub-story level is with Shocker. The first bit just involves going around an expansive level just beating up bad guys with the police. After that, you're going through the sewers chasing down Shocker, and it ends with a climactic battle with Shocker that's about as simplistic as the last boss fight.
Come on, freak. You need to learn a lesson, and Shocker's School of Hard Knocks is now open.
Give me a break, Shock. I can't believe you have any class, let alone a whole school worth.
I really love how Shocker immediately rats out Vulture after Spider-Man defeats him. It really shows just how much of a dick Shocker is. And it's also a good transition to the next level where you're climbing up Vulture's clock tower. The concept of this level isn't too bad, but it's nearly and literally destroyed by Vulture constantly throwing so many bombs everywhere. Absolutely nowhere is safe in this level. If you try bum rushing this level, you're going to die. I have no idea how I managed to get past this as a kid. I was probably playing on the easy setting now that I think about it. Still, this clock tower level can get nuked. After beating it, you chase down Vulture and beat him up. That's the end of that. This leads us to the Scorpion scenario, where the first part is about beating up those robot spiders that were chasing after him. Then you end up fighting Scorpion too.
Let's talk about this, Scorpion. You need help.
Talk. No talking. You can't take me back.
I wouldn't even know where to take you back to.
After Scorpion, we finally get to the first Green Goblin boss fight. It starts out with you saving Mary Jane, because what Spider-Man game doesn't involve doing that? And I was always surprised to see that that balloon that Spider-Man takes MJ off of ends up falling down towards the civilians in the city. Like, they're even screaming about it during the cutscene.
Grab hold of a road balloon anytime. Rescuing damsels is my specialty.
Yeah, you may have wanted to take care of that too, Spidey. After that, you go off to fight the Goblin, who continues to terrorize the city by throwing different challenges for Spider-Man to fix. Gotta say, I love the dialogue during these specific fights. Getting to hear Willem and Tobey actually read these lines is a lot of fun.
Meeting you today is an unexpected bonus, Spider-Man.
Oh yeah? I'm afraid I don't give autographs. Sorry.
How can you be so naive? These people wouldn't lift a finger to help you.
Yeah, well, since they can't fly or bend steel with their bare hands, I can't really blame them.
I've been burning bridges all day, but I think I'll just knock this one down.
Those people. I have to stop that bridge from falling.
Get a job, Menace!
Ah, my adoring public.
I can't believe you don't sense it. Our kinship. We are truly brothers.
Brothers, huh? Well then I'm telling Mom.
After that fight with the Goblin, we go through a very nerve-wracking mission where we have to stop bombs from going off. The bombs are also being guarded by these large searchlights, and a bunch of robots that are shooting lasers at you, just eating away your health. It's an irritating mission that can be a pain on the first few tries. Also, the sound that those searchlights make when they spot Spidey is the worst thing ever. Fuck off! After you finish that mission, then completely out of nowhere, you get thrown into the Kraven's level. Well, in the Xbox version at least. Yeah, this level is just randomly placed here, and it just involves Spider-Man making his way through a few hallways dodging booby traps and all. You're also on a time limit since some poison gas is slowly killing Spider-Man, so you gotta make your way to Kraven to get the cure before time runs out. During the whole thing, you can come across these fixed camera sections where you have to travel down a very narrow hallway, all while avoiding getting shot by Kraven. This bit shook me so hard as a kid. It also doesn't help that whenever you do get shot by Kraven, you lose a lot of health. Like, god damn. Then you fight Kraven, get the antidote, and the game just goes back to being about the Green Goblin. Yeah, there's not much to be said about the Kraven level. It's not too bad, but it's also not that memorable, or at least it wouldn't be if it wasn't exclusive to the Xbox version. I'll never understand why this wasn't on any other version. It's a really simple and kinda short level to get through. Not even the PC version had it? Maybe modders can get on that. Though I will say, the uninclusion of this level for the non-Xbox versions is kind of a shame whenever it comes to this level's music. That's another huge highlight for this game, the soundtrack. For the first time in this Spider-Man marathon, I can finally say that a Spider-Man game had a pretty good, if not fantastic soundtrack attached to it. It's one of the most memorable aspects of this game for me. I might as well just let the music play for itself because it's really great. In fact, the music in this game is pulled off so well that for the longest time I seriously thought they got Danny Elfman to do the music for the game too. But as it turns out, the game's score was composed by Michael McHuston, who I think did a brilliant job at making this game's soundtrack match almost the exact same tone as the movie. This is how you use fake instruments to your advantage. Enter electro. The soundtrack is so orchestral, atmospheric, engaging, and downright beautiful at points. Glorious friggin' soundtrack. Very well done. Back to the game. After the Craven's level, we get another encounter with the Goblin, who decides to send all his toys after Spider-Man. After escaping the Goblin, Peter finds one of Goblin's broken machines and analyzes it to see that it conveniently has the Oscorp logo on it. So Peter decides that he has to break into Oscorp. Meanwhile, Norman is looking up some of the info that his spider robots managed to gather about Spider-Man.
Spider-Man?
Well, well, well. What a tangled web we weave.
What the hell? He just keeps the Goblin suit in his office? Norman, don't you think that someone is gonna notice that? Okay, so the next level involves breaking into the Oscorp headquarters and... oh god, it's this level. It's a stealth level, and I hate stealth in Spider-Man games. They can be really slow and time-consuming if designed horribly, but I guess I will give the game some credit here. The stealth in this level involves hiding in the dark to not be spotted, all while collecting various puzzle pieces off computers to gain access to a huge door that leads to the Oscorp labs. The atmosphere and especially the music in this level is pulled off really well. Maybe a little too well. I remember this was the furthest I ever got in this game as a kid, and I stopped right at this level because it actually scared me. Why? Well, if you do get caught by one of Oscorp's guards, then they'll shout out loud, "It's Spider-Man!" Then they'll sound the alarm, which ends up causing these fuckers to show up. Ugh. I hated these things so much as a kid. They scared the hell out of me. And if they manage to spot you, you're basically dead. I mean, they just unload everything on you. They do go away if you stay hidden for a bit, but still. If I ever made a childhood trauma video like I saw some other YouTubers do, these bastards would definitely be mentioned in them because they suck! I mean, you're just sneaking around in this level trying to gather info, then almost out of nowhere you suddenly hear...
sound the alarm!
Oh shit! Shit! Gotta hide! Go away. Please go away. I don't like this game anymore. Why is it doing this to me? Why?
I never even got past this level as a kid. I actually remember I looked up a cheat code just to skip it using an option in the pause menu. I also remember using the same cheat to skip the rest of the Oscorp levels because I was just terrified of them.
The second Oscorp level involves Spider-Man sneaking around some more, while activating a few switches, and the game decides to give me a mini hernia by making these stupid Oscorp robots be way more active near the end of the level. This stealth mission is way more time consuming. The first one was more well done and got the atmosphere just right, but this one is all lit up and it just drags on a little too long. You can't just bum rush the whole mission if you're ballsy enough. Like I said, near the end of the level, the Oscorp robots aren't gonna go away even if you hide. So just run and jump your way near the end. I would easily say this is the worst level in the game. This was not fun to replay. The third Oscorp level involves defeating this large laser shooting robot. Wow, just like Spidey did in the movie. This technically counts as a boss encounter too, and it's not very good. You're being attacked by several Oscorp robots and also avoiding a massive laser that the large robot can blast at you if you get too far away from it. The previous level was the worst level in the game, and this is the worst boss fight in the game. In my opinion, at least. In the fourth and final Oscorp level, Spider-Man discovers that the Goblin is going after Mary Jane, and decides that he has to leave the place to go save her, again. But
standard search and destroy pattern. Find the intruder and neutralize with extreme prejudice.
oh, fuck off! Well, this is my worst nightmare come to life. Whoever decided that this would be a good final level for Oscorp is an a-hole. In this level, you gotta deactivate all the laser barriers and gates, all while avoiding those oh-so-lovable Oscorp robots. I'm pretty certain that if young me didn't immediately skip this level once it started, I most definitely would have caught a heart attack if I tried to complete it. Come on, we're at the end! I wanna get out of here! Wait, what is that robot doing? Okay, the doors are open! Oh, fuck you all! I'm swinging out of here! Freedom! The last few levels involve stopping the Goblin. So you chase him down, you save Mary Jane again, then you finally defeat the Goblin for the last time.
Mr. Osborn, why?
Yeah, this cutscene isn't anywhere near as engaging or as climactic as the movie's final battle. For example, seamless recreation.
Tell Harry I'm sorry.
I'm sorry too. Mary Jane, there's something I have to tell you.
I know, Tiger. You don't have to say.
Yeah, that's my life. Complicated. Looks like you're done now. Go outside and play.
Oh, fuck you, Tobey Maguire. I got work to do. Let's end this review by discussing the extra content. And there is plenty of it. The cheats menu rocks. You can use this to unlock so many stuff. Specifically costumes and the whatnot. This includes unlimited webbing, by the way. This can let you play as Shocker, Mary Jane in a dress, some weird Matrix Spidey that you fight in one of the training rooms, and there's also this Alex Ross Spidey suit, which was one of the earlier designs for the movie suit. These are just simple character skins for Spidey, but I think it's pretty hilarious how the character models can also affect the in-game cutscenes as well. Check it out, with the help of one simple cut, Tobey Maguire turned into Kirsten Dunst. Look out, thugs! Mary Jane's in a dress, and she's looking for Uncle Ben's killer!
Go get him, Tiger!
What the heck?
Mary Jane, there's something I have to tell you.
I know, Tiger. You don't have to say.
What the hell am I doing? The other extras include galleries for rewatching cutscenes, slideshows that include production stills from the actual movie, concept art made for the game. There are also these two interesting animation tests for Shocker and Vulture. Pretty dope. The training mode also has some cool options, aside from, you know, the basic training mode and stuff. There's also a hidden option that you could unlock by beating the game on a specific difficulty, or by using the cheats menu. It's a bowling minigame that you could play up to 4 players. It's a decent distraction. You can walk around the bowling alley to see a wall of screenshots, which I assume are of the developers. We also get to hear a few more funny voice clips done by Bruce Campbell.
Okay, come on. What's the first thing that comes to mind when you think of Spider-Man? bowling, right?
The biggest extra that you could unlock is the Green Goblin himself. You could play as the Goblin after you beat the game on the superhero difficulty, which is clearly the hardest one. However, you could just start a new game as a superhero, then quit the first level, go to the cheats menu, put in a cheat that unlocks all the levels, then select the conclusion cutscene, and it'll actually count as you beating the game on the hardest difficulty. Holy crap. And the Green Goblin isn't just a character model swap. You could fly around on the glider too, which is not the best controlling thing ever. However, playing through the game as the Goblin also means you have a brand new story too. This centers around Harry Osborn discovering his dad's suit and heading out to find more information about the death of his father. It's something. I recommend playing it for yourself, but be aware that this game is still on the hardest difficulty, so it's not going to be a very smooth first playthrough, especially considering the new gameplay style that you have to get adjusted to. Also, knowing Harry Osborn is being voiced by Josh Keaton just makes this really bizarre for me to see. A lot of the exact same one-liners that we heard Spider-Man say in his playthrough are also said by Harry in his playthrough, which kinda makes me think, if Josh Keaton was originally gonna voice Spider-Man in this game, then I'm going to assume that most of these lines might be his Spider-Man lines being reincorporated for Harry. Interesting.
Come on, freak. You need to learn a lesson, and Shocker's School of Hard Knocks is now open.
Oh, give me a break, Shock. I can't believe you have any class, let alone a whole school worth.
And that was Spider-Man the movie, the game. This was pretty fun to play through again. It's clearly showed its age in a lot of areas, but I still hold a special place in my heart for this game. Even if there are other Spider-Man games that have managed to win me over this one. The voice acting isn't the most amazing thing ever, the controls can take some getting used to, and I also hate the Oscorp levels at points, but I still say this is a pretty solid licensed movie game. It updated the stuff that previous Spider-Man games brought to the table, while also introducing new concepts and ideas worth expanding upon, and thankfully Treyarch was well aware of that. For their first outing as a Spider-Man game, it's really solid. It's a very nostalgic game for me. It gets a lot of crap nowadays, but I'd still recommend it. I definitely say that this game is way more accessible to newcomers than the PS1 games were, especially Enter Electro. It's a good Spidey game that I very much recommend, and it's also a pretty great send-off for the classic PS1 Spidey gameplay we've all come to know, not counting Spider-Man 2 on PSP. I would still recommend this game to any Spider-Man fan. It's well worth your time. 7 out of 10. So I guess that's 1 out of the actual 5 Spider-Man games that Treyarch worked on. So I guess I shouldn't waste too much time and just get to the good stuff already. So Spider-Man the movie, the game, ended up being a huge success for Treyarch, so for the next Spider-Man game they were going to pull out all the stops and just amaze us with something brand new and unique. So say goodbye to the original PlayStation 1 Spider-Man gameplay that we all know and love, because next time on Cooper's Perspective, we're going to be taking a look at the second Spider-Man game that Treyarch worked on, which also just so happened to be based off the second Sam Raimi Spider-Man movie, which was Spider-Man 2, the game. Now, originally, I was going to end this review by leading into my review of Sonic Mania, which I planned on doing after Spider-Man 1, the game. However, just before the game was due to be released, Aaron Weber did a live stream where he decided to fuck me up the ass by saying the PC version got delayed to the 29th. And that's the only version I have access to because I don't have a Switch or a PS4 or an Xbox One. I'm wearing my beanie because I got a freaking haircut while I was making this review, and I was going to reveal my haircut in the Sonic Mania review, but that's not happening anymore, so fuck it. So the next review is going to be Spider-Man 2 the game. I can't review Sonic Mania yet, and it's all my fault. I failed you all, and I need a real fucking job. Okay, I want to try to keep this brief. My throat feels like shit. I feel like shit, and I just want to get this video out. So, thank you for watching my review of Spider-Man the movie, the game. I did not expect it to be this long, but at the same time, I'm not surprised. Sorry if I sound weird when I'm trying to say words. My throat just feels really sore at the moment, but... So originally, I was gonna review Sonic Mania next, but then that delay for the PC version happened, and I don't have a Switch or an Xbox One or a PS4 to record on, so I have not played the game yet, and I'm unable to play the game until the 29th. While delays are pretty unpredictable, I still feel like me delaying my review was completely my fault. For over a year now, I've been doing Cooper's Perspective full-time. I've been completely relying on these reviews to take off so that I could do them comfortably for a living, but that is not happening right now. I've sort of been living off an allowance given to me by my parents, which has not been going so great as of lately. So like I joked about near the end of the review, I am gonna go look for a real job of sorts. I sort of promised my dad that after I get this review up, I'm gonna go look for a part-time job somewhere, because I can't keep living off my parents because this YouTube shit is going super slow and isn't paying off like I wanted it to. I'm not sure how this is going to affect the production of videos, but I will still try to get the Spider-Man 2 review out before the end of the month, because again, I try to do 2 reviews a month and I've been doing that pretty steadily, I think. But I'm not sure where I'm going to get part-time work anywhere. I might look up jobs online so that I won't have to be away from my computer that often. So I guess I'll keep you guys updated over whether or not I get a real job in the future. Who knows, maybe by the time I get one, Sonic Mania will be out and I could relieve my stress of having a real job by playing that game. But thank you for watching my videos and for supporting me this far. This whole time I've been trying to do YouTube full time, even though it hasn't been helping me in the slightest. But that's just how it works, I guess. It's heartbreaking having to know I can't rely on YouTube as a full-time job yet, and I don't know when I can, but I don't know. The future's unset, but yeah, by the time this review goes up, I might be online looking for jobs somewhere. Might do freelance editing or whatever, I don't know. But thank you for watching, thank you for listening, and I will see you guys for the Spider-Man 2 review at the end of the month. Thank you. Goodbye.